All right, everybody. This is one of two things that we're going to be learning here in the final week of school, which is codominance traits in genetics. So last week we jumped into genetics. Like I said, I figured some of you were going to have a little bit of trouble with it, and some of you are going to think it's no big deal at all. And so now we're going to get a little more advanced. So you should have a basic understanding of genetics. If you skipped over last week's work or you're still not understanding it, you're going to want to make sure you get that, because now I'm going to expect that you know things like allele and trait and dominant and recessive and homozygous and heterozygous. And I'm going to start using those words to teach us this new little twist that comes with things. And so that new little twist this time is going to be something called codominance. So last week was complete dominance, where you had a capital letter over a lowercase letter. And so whatever the capital letter stood for, it would dominate over the little letter. Okay, what if you have two capital letters? What if one doesn't dominate over the other? They're both dominant, they're co-dominant. So let's jump into that and talk about what that looks like here. Okay, so actually, let's go with a single sheet of paper so that we don't get that fuzzy background going on. All right. So we're going to talk about codominance traits. And it's not like we're just making this up to go, oh, let's just see what happens if it's a little different. No, this is actually certain traits in the body act this way. And in fact, we're going to talk about blood types today. And why there's different blood types and what do they all mean. But first we got to understand codominance. So co, what does the prefix co stand for? It stands for basically sharing. So co-captains on a sports team are both captains, and they share equally, or they should. Okay, so what does it mean when you got codominance traits? It basically means that there are two alleles. Remember, alleles are the possibilities for a certain trait. So there's two possibilities where neither one of them dominates. Where neither dominates. And because they share equally, they both show up. Okay? That's the only twist. Now we're going to have two capital letters. But that does make a difference, and so I want to go over that difference with you. So before we jump into the new stuff, let's recap a little bit of what we learned last week with an example of not codominance, but the complete dominance that we did last week. All right, so I'm just going to give you a problem, kind of like the ones you had to do last week. If I say that red flower color dominates over white. Okay, pretty straightforward. And then I give you a problem like, what possibilities of flower color could come from a cross of two heterozygous flowers. Okay, so you got to decipher that a little bit, right? So red dominates over white. So let's immediately start with our letters. That's where we start, right? I'm going to go with R because, hey, R for red makes it easy. So we'll go capital R, and since it dominates over the other, it'll be a lowercase r. So capital is for red, lower is for white. And then we got a picture. These are flowers, not people. Okay, so what do I know about their genotypes or their letters? So I go back to the problem. What do I know? They're two heterozygous. Remember, hetero means different. So you got to have one of each. So one capital, one lowercase. One capital, one lowercase. And what am I trying to figure out? What are the possibilities? Okay, so we're going to make flower children. I don't know what the possibilities are. All right, so then because I'm trying to figure out possibilities of the children or the next generation, I'm going to run a Punnett Square. Hopefully you're feeling comfortable with these. Put one of the genotypes here, put the other genotype on the top, run it, ba-bam, 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 ba-bam. For my genotypes, what do I get? I got 1 capital. I got 2 capital lowercase. And that leaves me with 1 lowercase. For the phenotypes then, what do I get? Well, if you're capital, you're going to be red. So I got 1 red here. Little arrows, probably make it a little easier to see. All right, if I got capital lowercase, well then the capital dominates over the lowercase. That's the thing to notice. So capital dominates over lowercase, so then I got 2 more red here. And if they're both lowercase, then I go back up and they're both going to be white. So I got 1 white. So if I combine these 2 here, I get 3 total red and 1 white. Okay. And so this is what are the possibilities for flower color? There's 3 out of 4 chance for red and 1 out of 4 chance for white, or 25% and 75%. Okay, so that is what we did last week. Hopefully that looks familiar to you. So let's jump into how is it going to look different this week. All right, so let me start a whole new piece of paper. That way it's nice and fresh and spaced out. All right, so this time I'm going to give you the same situation, except I'm going to tell you that red and white flower color are codominant. And you might be saying, like, do they have to tell you that? Yes, they do have to tell you that. They have to tell you that, is it a complete dominant situation? Is it a dominant recessive? Is it codominant? We'll also learn later this week about sex link. They have to tell you what type of trait it is, because you can't run these types of problems unless you know the type. So same situation. We want the possibilities of 2 heterozygous. I'll just keep it brief instead of writing out a complete sentence. Okay, how do we answer these problems? Same situation. Identify the letters, but here's the difference. There's red and white, but one does not dominate over the other. So how do you deal with that? Well, you have to give them both a capital letter. So I'm going to put R for red and W for white. So I go R for red and W for white. Because they're both capitals, that tells me that one does not dominate over the other. Okay, so then what do I do from that? I run the same thing. I do a picture. We're doing flowers. All right, and then what are their genotypes? Go back. There's both heterozygous. Heterozygous means 1 of each or different. So I got capital RW because I got 1 of each, capital RW because I got 1 of each. And what am I trying to do? Figure out the possible children. So then I go same steps to a Punnett square. Put one of the genotypes here, put the other genotype here, and look what you get. Capital R, capital R, capital R, W, capital R, W, W, W. And you might be thinking, isn't this pretty much what we just did? Aha, except it's going to come out a little different. Genotype. This looks very familiar. 1 capital R, 1 capital R. Here it's 2 capital R's, capital W's, and then 1 capital W, capital W. Okay, so still 1-to-1 ratio, doesn't look too different there. But when I go to phenotype, okay, this is where it gets a little funky. So obviously the R and the R is red, so you still have 1 red. I'm gonna skip that for a second. All right, go down to the back here. 1 WW, well that's obvious, they're both W, so it's gonna be white. So the only difference is gonna be here. What is this? Can't be red because the red doesn't dominate the white, and it can't be white because the white doesn't dominate the red. So what would you actually see on the flower? You would actually see red and white parts. And this is where you probably have seen flowers where you've got 2 colors on the same flower. Why? because the red doesn't dominate the white and the white doesn't dominate the red. And so this DNA makes the protein that makes red, this DNA makes the protein that makes white, and the flower now has a mix of color. So you get what we would say 2 red and white flowers. And so you have 3 different phenotypes here. You've got totally red, totally white, and then 2 that are a mix of red and white. And so this is how you get all the different kinds of flowers that you see in the world, is you're dealing with codominant traits where they start to have different mixes. And you can get it in sorts of places where it's more red at the center of the flower and it's more white around the tips. You get into all sorts of things. But this is why you get 2 colors, because one piece of DNA does not dominate over the other piece of DNA, and both proteins are made. This is what we call codominant. But I wanted you to look at the problem and notice, other than there being capitals, that's a difference. This still the same, this still the same, this still the same, but the phenotype is the difference. So when we say codominant problems, the 2 things you're going to want to make sure are a little different, your letters are going to be different, and your phenotypes are going to turn out a little different. That's the only tweak or change to this from last week's stuff. Okay? All right. So I mentioned we were going to talk about blood types. So let me fulfill my promise and let's talk about blood types. So got a nice fresh sheet of paper. All right. Why do we talk about blood types? Because blood types are codominant. Blood types. Okay. So we're going to make a chart here in just a second, but I want to show you the alleles for this. Okay. Just to get you familiar with them, because you're going to see them in a second. The alleles. There's a capital I with a little a at the top, like an exponent. There's a capital I with a little b at the top, and then there's a lowercase I. This one makes type A blood. This one makes type B blood. This one makes type O blood. And you might even be saying, for those of you that know this stuff out there, well, where's AB? We're going to get to that. It's coming. So you might be like, what's the heck with the I and the little a? Why don't you just put A, B, and I? Well, the reason we have a capital I and a lowercase I is because we want to show this one actually dominates over the little I. And this one actually dominates over the little I. So if you put these 2 together, you're going to get type B. If you put these 2 together, you're going to get type A. But what happens when you put a capital next to another capital? You're going to get both. And that's where the AB comes. But we'll get to that in a second. Okay, so I want to make a chart of this. Charts help us organize information. Let's see, let's start at the top. All right, so I'm going to use the column over here. We're going to talk about type A blood. Right. Let me make my columns first. So there are 4 types of blood. And you're like, wait a second, you just wrote 3. There are 4 because there's type A, which is this guy makes. There's type B. And then there's type AB, which is when you have an A and a B. We'll get to that. And then there's type O. Not a typo, but type O. Haha. Okay. So. All right. So what are we talking about here? So let me put the first thing here. What we're talking about is your red blood cells. When we say you have a certain blood type, we're talking about the red blood cells that's flowing throughout your body into the bloodstream. Okay. And if you've ever seen a red blood cell, it kind of looks like a donut. It's kind of like that, and it's kind of got a little donut on it. Okay. And they pick up oxygen from your lungs. They take it to the cells in the body, drop off the oxygen, and then go back to the lungs, pick up more oxygen. And when they have oxygen, they're red. And when they don't have oxygen, they don't have much of a color. They're like a slightly kind of bluish, purplish kind of color. So why is this important? Well, if you have type A blood, your red blood cell, little donut, has these things sticking off of it that let the body know, I'm a type A blood cell. So all of yours have type A blood cells, and so you would have these little A's sticking off of it. And so your body would see these A's and say, oh, everything's good. You're allowed to be here in the blood. The white, we talked about viruses and how the immune system will recognize like antigens. If it recognizes this as not belonging, it's going to attack these red blood cells. Okay, so A, you're cool, but B, you're not cool if you have type A blood. If you have type B blood, your red blood cells have little B's sticking off of them. They're not actually B's, but they're proteins, but we'll just keep it simple. Okay, so you say, oh, if you got a B on the outside, you're cool, you can be here. But if you don't have a B on the outside, you're not cool, you can't be here, and your immune system will attack it and kill it. If you have type AB blood, your red blood cells have both. They've got A's and B's, and A's and B's, and A's and B's, and A's and B's. And so your body recognizes both of these and says, hey, if you got an A, you're cool. If you got a B, you're cool. If you have both of them, yeah, you're still cool. So type AB can pretty much take any type of blood, which we will get to in just a moment, because as long as you have an A or a B, you're fine. Or if you don't have any, you're fine too. So you can take all kinds of blood. What about type O? We got, if you have A, we got, if you got B, we got, if you got both, what's the other option? Nothing. Type O blood has nothing on the outside. Okay? So that's going to become important here in just a second. So that's what the red blood cells actually look like, if you want to think of them in those regards. So for those of you that know your blood type right now, you want to check your blood type and go, oh, I'm in this category, I'm in that. All right, genotypes. So possible genotypes. Okay, so if I'm going to be a type A person, then I have to have this I to the A as one of my letters, right? So what's the other one going to be? Well, the other one could be another I to the A, so I could be capital I to the A, capital I to the A, or I could be capital I to the A and a lowercase I, which should code for the type O. So you say, well, how does that work? Well, because this is a capital, this dominates over this one here. Since they're both the same here, it doesn't matter. But this one would dominate over this, and like this one doesn't even exist. So you would have type A blood. If you're type B blood, same situation, only you would have I to the B and I to the B, so one from mom, one from dad. Or you could have type I to the B, capital I to the B, and a lowercase I. Why? Because again, this is a capital I, this is a lowercase I, this would dominate over that, so it's like this doesn't even exist. Okay? What do you guys think about type AB blood? Well, there's really only one option. You'd have to have an A for the A's, and you'd have to have a B for the B's. That's it. That's all there is. So you have to have one of each. So if you're heterozygous, you have type AB blood. So what is type O? Well, the only way you're going to get type O, like we said up here, it's a lowercase I, is you have to have both of them lowercase i's. That's the only way it works. Okay. Now, I know it looks funny because you got I's with an A and I's with a B and a lowercase I. Just, again, that's why we write the letters first, just to keep things straight. Okay, so those are your genotypes. Those are your possibilities for those types of blood. Okay. So let's say something happens and you get hurt and you're losing blood quick. What blood can you have put in your body? What blood can you receive? Okay. So if I'm type A blood, my red blood cells have little A's on the outside. So as long as you have an A, you're cool. So can I put type B blood in? No, because there's no A's on the outside of type B blood. So if somebody gives me blood that's type B, my body's going to go and kill all that new blood. And it basically, what's the point of me having it? So your body would reject that blood. So not type B. Okay. Can I get type A blood? Sure, you can get type A blood. Not a problem. So you can take your type A, somebody else's type A, your blood will pretty much be accepted in their body and their blood will be accepted in your body. Can you take AB blood, where you have A's and B's on the outside? You would think, well, it's got A's, so that makes it cool, right? No, because your body says, yeah, the A's are cool, but what's up with these B's? You shouldn't have that. You don't belong here, and your body rejects it and kills it. So if you put AB blood in a type A person, it's going to reject that blood. So nope, you can't take type AB. Can you take type O? Well, there's no A's and there's no B. There's nothing. So would your body have anything to say you don't belong? No. Your body looks at this and goes, oh, there's nothing there, so I guess you're fine. So yes, you can take type O blood. So if you have type A, you can take type A or type O. If you go into the hospital and you need blood and you're type B, you can obviously take other type B blood. That'll be just fine. But just for the same reasons as with type A, if I put type A blood into type B, your body's going to kill it. If I put type AB into type B, your body's going to see those A's and say, hey, you don't belong, and kill it. So these don't work. So the only other one would be type O. Type O, everybody could take type O. All right. So now let's go over to type AB. Well, obviously you can take the same as you, so you'll be able to take type AB. Can you take type A blood? Yes, because your body says if you have an A or B, you're cool with me. Well, I have A's, so you're cool. And I have B's, so you're cool too. So all three of you can come in. So you can accept type AB, you can accept type A, you can accept type B, and because type O has nothing on the outside, you can accept that one too. So if you are type AB blood, you can go to the hospital and you can pretty much take anybody's blood into your blood and you're good to go. So this is why we call those people a universal acceptor. We'll get to that in a second. All right, then come over here to type O. Can you take, your body says, hey man, if you have anything on the outside, you don't belong here. And so if you have an A on the outside, you don't belong. If you have a B on the outside, you don't belong. If you have an A and a B on the outside, you definitely don't belong. So the only thing that belongs is other type O. So you can only take one type of blood, type O. So this is if you need blood, all right? So let's cap that off. Extend my lines just a little bit. Okay, so that's if you need blood. So what blood can you take into your body? What about if you want to go donate blood? Who can take your blood? All right, well, if I'm type A, if I have A's on the outside, I can't give it to type B people, so they're out. But I could give it to type AB people, okay? So I can give it to other type A people, or I can give it to type B people, type AB people. Anybody who accepts A's can take my blood. If I'm type B, anybody who takes B's can take my blood. So I can give it to type B people, or I can also give it to type AB people. Here's a tricky one. Who will take this blood? Not A, because it's got B's on it. Ugh. Not B, because it's got A's on it. Ugh. Not O, because it's got something on it, and O's like, I can't have anything in my blood. So the only people they can give their blood to is people just like them. So the only people you can give it to are type AB. So you can accept them all, but you can only give it to one person. Whereas type O, who can you give it to? You can give it over to type A people because there's nothing on the outside. You can give it to type B people because there's nothing on the outside. You can give it to type AB people because there's nothing on the outside. And you can give it to other type O people. So you can give it to everybody. You can give it to type A, type B, type AB, and type O. So they can give it to anybody. Anybody can take their blood. Problem is, they can only receive one type of blood. So this is where we get into these terms that you probably have heard before. Because the AB blood cells can take A's and B's and A's and B's and O. They can take them all. We call these guys, anybody with this blood type, the universal acceptor. They can take in, they can accept blood from anybody. Because type O can give it to A, give it to B, give it to AB, give it to other O's. They can give it to everybody. We call them the universal donor. And if you want to go donate blood, especially during something like a pandemic, they love it when these people come into the hospital and say, I want to donate blood. They're all, thank goodness. They love type O people because they can give that blood to all the patients in the hospital. Now, there's a positive and negative thing that I'm not getting into today. So you could be O negative or O positive. O negative would be the best. If you have O negative blood, like the hospital would pay you. They literally would pay you money to give your blood to the hospital because they can use it on anybody. Whereas if you're a certain type, you can only accept certain types and you can only give it to certain types, but type O can give it to everybody. And type AB, they can take it from anybody. And so this is why when you go in for any kind of emergency, they want to know what blood type you are. This is why it's good to have it in your medical file so the doctor can look it up really quick and they can figure out, okay, if we need to give you blood, what kind of blood do we need to give you? So how does this connect to all the codominant stuff? Well, this is codominance right here. When you have a capital to the A and a capital to the B, neither one of them is dominant over the other, so they both exist. They're both A's and both B's. Otherwise, you've got, this is regular dominance, this is regular dominance, and this is regular recessive. This is the only codominant situation on this board right here. But it relates to blood type, so I figured this is a good time to talk about blood type. All right, let's do an example problem with this. All right. A homozygous type A blood man and a type, I should just put it over here, AB woman have children. What are the possible blood types of the children? What are the possibilities for blood types for the children? Now we don't know what they are, so we gotta figure out the probability, the possibility. Okay, so just like the type of problems that we did last week, where do you start? You identify your letters. So when it comes to blood type, it's real easy. They're already given to you. I to the A, I to the B, lowercase I. This is your type A. This is your type B. This is your type O. And again, type AB would only be when you're heterozygous. Okay, so then again, we go to a picture. Woman with a fro. Man. All right, let's go back to the problem. What are these people? Homozygous type A man. Okay, so he's type A, so I know he has one of these. And the key here is homozygous. What does that tell you? Homozygous means same. So he must have the same letter, so he must have two of these. So he must be I to the A, I to the A. The woman is type AB. Well, there's only one possibility to be AB, so she must be it. So it's 1A and 1B. They're going to have children. We don't know, so we want to figure that out. So what do? Same thing we did last week. We run a Punnett Square. I'm going to put right here, I to the A, I to the B. Just keep these separate. This is like one allele. This is another allele. This is one allele. There's another allele. Dad is I to the A, I to the A. And then you run it, just like you did last week. I to the A, I to the A. I to the A, I to the B. A and B. I to the A, I to the A. I to the A, I to the B. Okay, it looks really complicated, but again, it's just more letters, but just keep them straight. So then I do genotype. Well, these two boxes are the same. So I have 2 I to the A, I to the A. And these two boxes are the same. So I have 2 I to the A, I to the B. So then what do I have as far as phenotype? Well, if you have capital I to the A, capital I to the A, there's only one possibility. You have type A blood. So I got 2 people that are type A. If you have 1 I to the A and 1 I to the B, there's only one possibility. You must be type AB. So the question said, what are the possible blood types? It's type A and type AB. So you can't have a type O child and they can't have a type B child. These are the only 2 possibilities these parents can have. All right. All right, I'm going to do one more problem for you. It's a little bit shorter, but it doesn't require a Punnett Square. It does some thinking. Oh no, you got to use the lump on top of your shoulders. Yippers. Okay, here's another example problem. Mr. Charlton, Mr. C is type O blood. That is true. I am type O. I'm type O positive though. So I can give it practically to anybody, but not every single person. If I was type O negative, oh, I've been banking. I've been at the hospital donating blood all the time. All right, so I am type O. My dad, we'll just do third person. His dad is type B. What are mom's possible genotypes? And remember, genotypes is the letters. Okay, how do we start? Same place we always start. Identify your letters. I know it gets a little bit repetitive with blood type because you're like, isn't it going to be the same ones? Yeah, but it's good to have them here. Plus, it makes you look professional and on top of your game. Okay, so we go to a picture. There's my froey mom. My mom does not have a fro, just in case you want to know. And then my dad. Now, this case, we know the children. They had me. Holy wee little Mr. Charlton. Okay, so let's start putting some information. Mr. Charlton is type O. Oh, so you can put names. Mr. C is right here. This is dad. This is mom, just to keep things straight. Okay, I'm type O. So you go, okay. Well, if you can remember this chart, there's only one possibility if somebody's type O. They must have lowercase, lowercase. So I would have to have a lowercase I, a lowercase I. Those are the only possibilities for me. All right, my dad is type B. Okay, in order to be type B, you could be capital IB, or just one capital IB with a lowercase. I don't know which one he is, but I know that he has at least one capital I to the B. Okay, so he has to have at least one capital I to the B. So I'll put it right here. What that other one is, not sure. And then it says, what are the possibilities for mom? Okay, well, so I don't know what moms are. Mom blank right now. 2 blank possibilities. Okay, now, since we're not trying to figure out what the children could be, we already know what the child is. We don't have to do a Punnett Square. What we have to do is some thinking. All right, if you look at Mr. Charlton, you could say, well, he had to get these from somewhere, and where did he get them from? He had to get them from mom and dad, of course. So that means this one must have come from dad. So this one must have come from dad. It wasn't the one that we know he used to make some type B, so the other one has to be a lowercase I, because this came from dad. And this one had to come from mom, so we know at least one of these is lowercase I. So then that leaves us with this one here. Well, what could that be? Could be anything. We don't know. It could be an I to the A, it could be an I to the B, or it could be another lowercase I. So when it says, what are mom's possible genotypes? I would say mom could be I to the A with a lowercase I, so she could be that. Or she could be I to the B with a lowercase I. Or she could be a lowercase I with another lowercase I. And you might be saying, that's it? That's not really a definitive answer, Mr. Talden. Well, based on the information you got, you can't make a definitive answer. That is the closest you can get. Mom is either capital I the A, lowercase I, capital I the B, lowercase I, or lowercase. Okay? So not every problem requires a Punnett square. It just depends on what they give you. And you got to think, okay, that came from mom, that came from dad. So then mom must have that, dad must have that if you gave it to the child. And so then you work backwards and try to figure it out. That's how you solve that problem. Traditionally, these are the types of problems you see, but they're not all like them. So the problems you're going to have this week, some of them will be on blood type. Some of them will be on maybe flower color. And so you might do a problem that looks more like that with two different capitals. Here, we have two different capitals on the same capital letter. So that's just special to blood type, but this is codominance in non-blood type problems. All right. All right, so that is our review of codominance traits. Hopefully it's making some sense to you. There'll be a series of questions that you need to do this week, and then there'll be another video with those questions where I go over 2 of the problems to make sure you're on the right path on doing these things. So I would like you to try the problems. If you get stuck, that's okay. Then you watch the videos and say, all right, am I doing this right? And if you're still getting stuck, then reach out to me on office hours on Wednesdays and Thursdays at 2 o'clock. Send me a Jupiter message or text me at my phone number that you should all have now. All right. I wish you all good luck. And then the second set after this is sex-linked. So there's another video explaining how those are different. And so make sure to watch that as well. All right. Good luck, everybody.